Good afternoon, everybody. Very pleased to be here to host this panel. I'm Alessandro. I'm a partner managing director of AlixPartners. And we work a lot in the automotive. We just ran a fresh survey, and it was quite an astonishing result because it came out that in the Middle East, in particular in Saudi Arabia, 85% of 70% in 2024 are the likelihood of buying an electric vehicle. And this is quite an astonishing difference with more evolved markets like Europe and US, where the percentage is around 55%. So there is a lot of interest in adopting electric vehicles in the region. So I give you maybe a quick run of introduction, starting from Alaa, ourselves, and then we will go through a couple of questions for everyone. Alaa?
Hello, can you guys hear me? I'm not sure if this is working.
Can you hear you? Yeah.
Can you hear me at all? No?
Hello.
He's coming. Oh, you can hear me.
As loudly as you guys want me to. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So my name is Alaa El-Huni. It's a pleasure and privilege to be here today. I wanted to start by thanking Evis and yourself for having us here. I work at CAFU. CAFU provides services to vehicles on an on-demand and mobile basis. And what we do understand now is our customers, our clients, and how to provide convenient services to them, removing that headache from their heads and doing it in the most convenient way possible. We've launched EV charging services just about a year ago now, and we have launched them initially in Canada. We started off our beta testing in Montreal, and as of this year, we have launched Toronto as well. And we, similar to bringing fuel to our customers, we bring an EV charge to wherever that vehicle is, and it's a connected solution in Canada today, where we're able to communicate with the vehicle, understand its state of charge, communicate with the customer places the order, and then we will provide that charge to the customer.
Thank you. Yang Fong is bringing a bit the voice of OEM, correct? So quick.
Sure. Can all of you, yeah, I think it works. I'm Yen, I'm from General Motors. Me and my team, we lead the growth strategies for General Motors in the region. General Motors is more than a century old company in US that produces, up to this stage, majority of it is ICE vehicles, but we do have a vision of an all-electric future. We have the Chevrolet, GMC, and the Cadillac brand in the region. So we want to transform, and we want to work with the government and the industry players to lead and transform towards the all-electric future. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig?
Yeah, hi. Oh, crikey, that was loud. That should wake you up. I'm Craig Stevens. I've got a very loud microphone. I've been involved in automotive marketplaces now for over 30 years in different countries. Spent the last 5 years based in the UAE as chief exec of DubiCars. And DubiCars is a marketplace basically that connects buyers and sellers. The sellers can be OEMs, car dealers or private sellers, and they can be selling new cars, used cars, petrol cars, EVs. So we have a very good understanding about the market. We have a very good understanding about what consumers are searching for. We've got a very good understanding about pricing in the market. And we've done a pretty extensive survey on consumer sentiment towards EVs and what's going on in this market. And I will give you some of that feedback when I'm asked a question. Please bear in mind that this is consumer feedback, not my own personal view. So don't treat me as a villain if I say something that this audience doesn't like.
Thank you. Mohammad?
Thank you all. My name is Mohammad Shaheen, Managing Director of Rising Motor. Rising is coming from Shanghai Auto, SAIC. I'm sure most of you know about SAIC. SAIC recently has decided to channel the EV products through Rising channel. and commits to provide high technology, highly connected, battery swappable products to markets in the region. Rising Auto actually is a very influential OEM in the Chinese market, and recently has started its overseas business. Aside from other channels from SAIC, Rising stands alone with the technology advancement on the EV, the batteries, and the battery swappability. On the other side, also with its collaborations with another affiliate, which is CATL, as well. The advancement on the technology and battery is going through this particular channel coming from SAIC to local markets. So thank you again.
And last but not least, Khaled.
Yes, thanks for having me today. Actually, I'm working with E and representing Charge&Go today, and we are excited to have our second participation in AVIS. We are building an ecosystem of charge point operator in UAE and other countries to enable the mobility and the sustainability in a different manner. We have a different approach. We have been the classical telecom operator, but now we are moving to the power and electrification of societies and economies. And today, I'm here to share my experience and where we are heading with our next big thing. Thank you.
Okay. Let's start. I have a question first to Greg. Let's start from Greg from the consumer's angle.
Okay.
Which is, in your opinion, the main challenges that are preventing the consumers to buy electric vehicles?
Yeah, so as I said, we've just done a big study on this, so it was quite interesting. So we looked at it from two angles. We looked at it from a new EV buyer and a used EV buyer. So we just asked a question to a consumer: when you're about to buy your next car, what are you considering? And don't forget, our site is predominantly people who are in the market to buy now, so it's sort of real-time data. And it was really interesting. So when we first asked the question, would you be interested in buying an EV, a hybrid, or petrol, only 8% came back and said they would consider an EV, and 44% said they would consider a hybrid, and we'll talk about that maybe a bit later. Of that 8% that considered buying an EV, we actually see that translate into 4% of demand on our website. So actually it's around 4 or 5% demand for EVs that we're seeing through our platform. And then when we asked the next question about whether it be new or used, 83% said they would only buy a new EV, and therefore only 17% would consider buying a used EV. And we should talk about the issues that will cause in the industry if there's no demand for used EVs. If we look at the three reasons why consumers don't want to buy an EV, a new EV at the moment, well, one is price. And my gentleman to the left here is going to tell me that price is coming down and new vehicles are into the market, which is absolutely true. But as it stands at the moment, price is still a major issue for when someone wants to transition to a new vehicle. The second one is range anxiety, and I know that we're getting better and better in terms of battery technology, but it's still a real issue that people are concerned about, range anxiety. And the third one I think is really interesting is around just the speed of technology advancement. So, you know, when I buy an EV, when is this model going to be updated? And that's a real issue for consumers. And I kind of, you know, if you think about if you've just bought a brand new Toyota Land Cruiser 5.7 VXR top of the range, and you're at the traffic lights, and suddenly 6 months later, the new Toyota Land Cruiser 6.2 that's even faster with an even bigger screen turns up, and the good news is that consumers paid the same amount you did 6 months ago, you're not going to feel pretty good about your purchase. And I think there's some of the issues around the EV market, because technology is advancing so quickly that people are concerned about, you know, that their car's going to be old the day they drive it off the forecourt. If we quickly just flip it to the used market and why consumers are concerned about the used, number one is actually the lifetime of the battery. That's the main issue around the used market. And I think that is a real concern, because, you know, from a used car perspective, on average, a consumer would expect to spend around $1,200 a year maintaining their car. if an EV battery goes, even though there are warranties to protect, but if a battery goes, that can range from 5,000 a year to up to 20,000 a year to change a battery. So that's a real issue for a consumer to think about the health of the battery. The second thing is price, which is the same as the first, and the third one is around technology advancement. So I think there's some real issues there, I think, to consider. And before I hand over, I think, on the used side, I think it's just worth reminding that, used EVs are the fastest depreciating vehicles available in the marketplace. They take the longest amount of time to sell. So from a car dealer's point of view, their risk of handling these cars that will take a while to sell and will depreciate is real. So the whole infrastructure needs to work on EVs. It can't just be about pumping in new cars at the top. We need a really good quality used car market for EVs as well to ensure the whole ecosystem can work for car retailing.
Thank you, Greg. And I want to ask a question to Alaa, because one of the key challenges we've seen is the charging infrastructure, and improving the charging infrastructure is a key success factor in increasing the likelihood for the consumers to buy in electric vehicles. I know that CAFU is at the forefront of investing in mobility, electric infrastructure, etc. So what's your view on that? How these can help the consumers, convince the consumers to buy electric cars?
Thank you very much for the question, and I think one of the points you brought up is very important, which he was alluding to range anxiety and concerns that drivers or owners of EV vehicles have when driving. We believe that it extends beyond just range anxiety. There's range anxiety, there's charger anxiety, so not only that I finally got to a charging station, but in many markets where those chargers have existed for a while, they might be out of service, there might be a lineup, there might be, and I don't have access to it. And that's a concern as well. And then finally, even when it comes to the speed of charging, and what we've seen in particular markets is even the time of day. So if it's 7 p.m., do I really want to be parked while it's night in an off location, charging my vehicle, and am I at risk by doing so? And these type of elements have led us to understand a bit more and more about consumers. Now, we believe that we're in the 21st century. There's a lot of technology that we could leverage and take advantage of. Vehicles, as we know very well today, are much smarter today than what they were 100 years ago when this type of fixed infrastructure was being looked at to develop that charging infrastructure. So our view is, how do we leverage this technology to make it more efficient, to increase the utilization of it, and make it more convenient and smarter in allocating that energy to the vehicles that need it. And that's why we felt that a mobile infrastructure can support the adoption and can help bridge that gap of the EV charging infrastructure. I think one of the reasons why infrastructure gap is growing as EV adoption is happening is that utilization for an infrastructure is critical. And if I build an infrastructure across an entire city and I'm only getting a 10, 15, 20% utilization of that infrastructure, then it doesn't make sense, or my ROI on what I've invested doesn't really make sense immediately. It's over the long term, as adoption happens, when I finally start getting 70, 80, 90% utilization of that infrastructure that I built, where finally those returns start making sense. We believe that a mobile infrastructure is modular and can help bridge that gap as adoption happens and infrastructure is being developed. And we believe that by being able to connect and communicate with these vehicles, we'll make sure that we bring that energy at the right time, at the right location, whenever that vehicle actually needs it, versus when that driver of the vehicle might feel that anxiety and say, I'm at 40%, let me charge right now immediately. Even though they still have significant autonomy, it's just a lack of trust in that vehicle in itself. The vehicle understands itself very well, and if we're able to communicate with that vehicle, then we're going to be able to deliver that energy when it needs it.
Interesting. If if we move from the consumers, the infrastructure, to the OEMs, Yangfeng, I know that General Motors is for sure one of the biggest OEMs in the world. What are the strategies of OEM to increase and to the likelihood of EV adoption, but also to manufacture potentially parts of the components of the value chain or the assembly of the vehicles in the region? So we know that in Saudi Arabia there are a lot of initiatives ongoing, OEMs coming in. What's your view on that?
Yeah, thank you. So you mentioned EV adoption and regional manufacturing. Actually, it kind of goes hand in hand. For manufacturing to make sense for most of the OEMs or companies, foreign investors, we have to leverage on the economies of scale, right? So the faster the EV adoption means it brings in the volume demand for the EVs, then the faster it is or the more feasible it is for foreign investors, governments, OEMs to set up manufacturing in the region. We already have quite a few, that's a good thing, right? We have in KSA, of course, Lucid partnering with PIF, we have Sear. In UAE, we also have Rabdanwan, El Damani. As General Motors, also for a long time, we have manufacturing facilities in Egypt assembling ICE vehicles. There are plans to expand this facility to battery electric vehicles in the future as well. We also have the Middle East Battery Company, MAPCO, in Saudi, manufacturing the maintenance-free batteries for all types of vehicles in the region. So there are, we're constantly monitoring, can we do more? But I think that's where we need to work together with government, industry players like ourselves to speed up the EV adoption rate, and then so that the volume EV demand can come in, and then it makes more sense for us to put up EV manufacturing in the region. There are a few things that also would be key to look into. Regulation and policies are very important. What's the advantage for OEMs or foreign investors to look at putting manufacturing here versus other regions? Are there incentives? Are there subsidies for buyers of EVs that are manufactured in the region as well? Charging infrastructure, etc. The good thing is coming up, but it is not at the stage where it is seamless. There's a lot about education and awareness of the benefits of EVs also. And also, on top of that, I think the countries in the region they are a little bit competing also for manufacturing, to localize manufacturing in their countries. While that is good, they can also possibly look at how they can collaborate as well. Because wherever a manufacturing plant consideration comes into play, usually that manufacturing, it would be good if they can serve the whole region and not for just that market. So really, I think the competition is also, let's say, Middle East as a region versus other powerhouse manufacturing countries like India, China, or even North Africa. So these are the things that, I think it's good to look into. The opportunities are very optimistic because we're not only looking at, EV cars by itself. It has a lot of other verticals and adjacency industries that it can drive. There's battery recycling, battery manufacturing, there is parts, there's technology, mobile app development. It can span in all different ways. Thank you.
You mentioned regulation. I think, Khaled, from your perspective, how regulations and the maturity of incentives can help the adoption of electric vehicles, and on one side from the consumers, but also for the investors to invest. So how you see the regulation framework in the region especially?
Well, okay. I'm glad that the panelists just mentioned very key words when it comes to building the ecosystem. As investors, as you know, we are in the telecom industry, and to provide the voice and data, this has been excelled with the business KPIs and with proper rules and regulations that has been regulated by different governmental and non-governmental bodies. Within the country itself, you have regulators, you have the government laws, and with the international standards, you have a guideline where you would need to build up your network. So it's similar here in the power sector, where building the ecosystem, looking to Greg's three main elements that he mentioned, with CAFU as well, where how we can build an infrastructure or how we can reach the customer and how the customer can reach that level of service with a certain grade. OEMs as well, yes, they want to go for that investment. So unless you have proper rules and regulations that are white or black, it's not gray. In different regions, you will see now different standards and different tariffs, different rules and regulations. So that's the biggest challenge, where the investors, they are not able to build their business plans for the coming 2, 3, 5 years, where to put that infrastructure, which strategies they need to go for. So yes, that's a big challenge for the investors. And even the competition now is adding on top of that, again, another challenging vector that you have to take into consideration once you invest, because the rules are still not clear.
Thank you. Mohammad, from your perspective in rising auto, you have a very good view of what's happening in the region. How you see the challenges in the region compared to the global challenges of EV adoption?
As we see it, or as I think, you know, if you look at the trends that has been done in fostering the adoption, on the government, there were regulations and commitments through subsidies, through tax incentives, through you know, more tough regulations on the ICE emissions. On the OEM, there has been a lot of commitment as well in developing the products that will fit with this adoption. That led us also with more of the consumer acceptance to EV. The whole thing of this leaves us with two kinds of challenges, if we summarize them. The conventional challenges, which we heard before, is on the energy grid, on the development of the batteries. The technology advancement itself has been a challenge, which left the industry more volatile than ever. And on the other side, which is, I think it's a bit non-conventional kind of challenges, is that this advancement in this sector has in a way, started some kind of, let me say, a war, economical war between major economies, and particularly the US and China. And in this times where the election is coming in the US, there are two kinds of view of the EV. One side is pushing for electrification and adoption. The other side is the exact opposite. So that particular pivotal time might change the whole global looking at the electrification in the global sense of it. Locally, if we look at this turmoil, the challenge of the volatility of this industry amidst this global turbulence, puts more challenge on what are the regulations that needs to be done in the local sense, so that we can localize the manufacturing. Also, where are we standing in the global supply chain amidst the volatility of this industry? And the good thing about that is that we can look at the Chinese school in that sense. In the past years, we have seen the rise and fall of brands, of technologies. How can we regulate things that will actually learn from those failures and successes? And how can we localize something of competitive edge in the global supply chain, additionally to how to localize the manufacturing or regulate the manufacturing in which that will serve the growth, economical growth in this region. In summary, you know, it's the adoption and the acceleration of the adoptions comes with challenges. Now, the thing is how those challenges are being addressed with the same magnitude as the industry is evolving. That's a big question. And how the stakeholders and the appetite between the stakeholders to actually collaborate, to adapt and you know, run with the same pace as the adoption and the challenges. So that, I think, will remain the question for the next 3 years at least, on the OEM side and on the local regulators side. And one last thing is that also, which is very important on the consumer side, it's also being as effective on the OEM's perspective. Because as we have heard now, the anxiety of the technology and the advancement is being more effective than ever now. So how would the OEM and the commitment of the OEM to invest on technologies that will actually be more flexible to adapt to this anxiety, and how would the battery development will be fit in this hardware, and the development of the software is also being adapted. So those will remain questions in the next years, and the local governments has to know exactly where to regulate and what to regulate in a timely manner.
Clear. If now we go back to consumers, Craig, how we convince, which are the measurements, the initiatives that we can put in place to convince consumers to get to electric vehicles and transition from internal combustion engine to electric vehicles?
Yeah.
What is needed?
Oh, well, there's no silver bullet. I think that's the answer. There's no one thing we can do to make that happen. I think there's a range of initiatives that need to happen to get consumers into electric vehicles. But I suppose, you know, the first question is, do we want to accelerate adoption of EVs, right? Do we really want that to happen? And if we want that to happen, we've got to change what we're doing at the moment, because we're not seeing rapid adoption. In this region, we're not seeing rapid adoption. It's growing, but it's not fast enough. So I think the first thing is, if we want to see rapid adoption, then the consumer can't take the full risk for rapid adoption. They can't take the full financial risk of rapid adoption. That's not fair, it's not reasonable, and it's not economical, it's not going to happen. So I think, you know, we need to think about maybe electric cars, because of the rapid rate of technology advancements, maybe more like mobile phones. You know, do I want to own my mobile phone? No, I don't want to own my mobile phone. And do I care if it gets updated next year? No, I'll just change it in my plan. And, you know, and I don't think about it like that. And I think maybe that's the way we have to think about EVs. We can't think about EVs like we did traditional cars. And maybe we can de-risk then, so it's not, you know, for the consumer, they don't have this huge financial impact when they come to sell it, and they don't care about, you know, the technology upgrades, because eventually they can get that next month or the month after. But that will take massive re-engineering for that to happen. I think the second thing is, you know, actually, if we're okay with the adoption rates of EVs, and we're happy for this to play out 3, 5, 10 years, then I think it's actually already happening. And I think what's interesting is, you know, for 44% of consumers on our survey to say they're interested in a hybrid car, maybe that's the next natural step for consumers, to get them into hybrid, to get used to driving on both drivetrains, to feel comfortable on their range of 100, 200 kilometers on the EV, on the hybrid. Hybrids are very good at holding their residual value and in high demand. So maybe that's a natural step to get customers in. But I think if you go down that path, I don't think we're going to see anything happen dramatically for at least 5 to 10 years. And at that stage, then probably prices have stabilized in the EV market, the infrastructure's there, and technology has slowed down. You know, it can't keep going at this rapid rate. So they're the two strategies.
Right, interesting. If we go back to facilitating the EV adoption, Alaa, at CAFU you are trying to make it, let me say, cheaper and more competitive for consumers to charge electric vehicles. What's the actions, the initiative you have in place to foster this electric vehicle adoption and make it more competitive for consumers?
So on the fuel side, I think many people that have used our service have seen we've really committed to providing that service at the exact same cost as pump price. And for the rest of the services that we have launched, that's really the mindset that we have. I think you brought up a very good point. The consumer shouldn't be the one that has to pay or fund this, right? It should be naturally developed in a way where it's not a pain point or it's not a cost, an additional cost for a customer to be able to use this service, regardless of the service that we provide or that others do. So our mindset is really, really aligned with that comment. And even on EV charging, we really want to be very competitive and make sure that it is not at a very large additional cost for the customer to be able to use this. And I think there's several things that we try to do in order to make sure that we're able to deliver that. One is the business models that we develop. We try to develop them in a way where we can give that result to that customer without it being significantly more expensive. From our perspective, it's really heavy utilization. We build and develop assets. We try to get very, very maximum utilization on those assets so that the net cost to the customer is not higher. If the asset is only utilized 2 times a day and only 5% of that asset is being utilized, they're going to have to bear the burden of the entire cost of that asset. Whilst we use our AI-enabled algorithms, we develop these assets in a way where they're utilized for 20 to 20.5 hours a day. Hence, the cost per charge for that customer is not so significant. And that's really part of the mindset. We leverage technology as much as we can. So we have developed our own AI algorithms to optimize the route, to predictively know where orders are going to come from, so that we minimize waste and inefficiency and are still able to provide it in the most efficient way possible to our customers and hence minimize it. And I do believe in one final thing, is we work very closely with the governments themselves. We work very closely with whether it's the federal government, the provincial government, the municipal government. And as an example in Montreal, we work with Hydro-Quebec, which is the equivalent of the utilities company in Quebec. And we try to gain that electricity during the off-peak hours and deliver it during the peak hours. The cost of that electricity during the off-peak hours is significantly better for the utility for us to be taken. We even actually take it at off-peak locations. So it's not just when you're taking it, it's where you're taking that electricity from. And hence we're helping the grid a bit. Net, we should be providing a better service. We understand the funding programs and the grant programs that exist in the provinces that we work with and try to leverage that as much as possible to reduce the cost on us and hence ultimately the cost on the customer. So we work very closely with the governments to understand what grants, what funding programs, why they're implemented, and try to structure ourselves in a way where we maximize the benefit of those and return that benefit to the citizens or the taxpayers in those markets as well. It's not us alone. We also work very, very closely with the OEMs, with the dealers, to try to provide a way in which the model that we're going to develop from the very beginning allows us to maximize the utilization. So we work closely with them to kind of align and say, how many vehicles do you foresee selling? Which are your customer base? How are we going to be able to access that customer base? And hence that makes our model a lot more efficient in the way that we roll it out.
Yeah, perfect. Moving again to OEMs and Fong, which are the collaborative strategies? We heard also before that you need to develop an ecosystem, so you need collaborative strategies among the different stakeholders, OEMs, chargers, government. What's your view on which are the overall collaborative strategies involving also the OEMs to foster electric vehicle adoption?
Yeah, as what Craig mentioned earlier, right? There's no silver bullet. So, and no single player can succeed on its own in this huge transformation from ICE into EVs. So I think every stakeholder in the game has a big part to play, and how we play it greatly impacts that speed of adoption that we want. So for example, government may not always know what is the right regulation and policies. So individually, like CAFU is working with the government, OEMs are also working with the government, and sometimes we also need to collaborate with our competitors to together convince the government on certain regulation and policies that can help drive EV adoption. And sometimes it's as simple as a clarity in regulation by itself is already a huge improvement in our region. On top of that, also, for example, for charging stations operators and CAFU, how do we work together to create that optimal EV ecosystem? Because we want the experience of EV users to be optimal, because else it's very easy for them to switch back to ICE, and that's not what we want, right? So how do we make use of technologies, digital apps, and to Alaa's point, right, is there a way where we can collaborate if we know where our EV customers kind of stay or dwell at, and these are the places that we know, then that's perhaps where charging infrastructure can be more densely populated there to increase the utilization of the charging infrastructure. It's better than them just installing where they feel would happen, but it may not always be that case. So these are a few examples, but really sky is the limit when it comes to collaboration. Whenever we speak with Alaa, with CAFU, or with Charge&Go and other industry players, new ideas comes about. Yeah.
And clear, thanks, Yen. Mohammad, a question to you. How the government, the regulation framework can support manufacturing, local manufacturing, and developing a local ecosystem in the GCC region, in particular in UAE?
I think, first of all, we have to look at the regulations. That's, the foundation of any localized manufacturing is the regulations, the infrastructure. That's something that is essential to any kind of development. But what I would look at, particularly, you have to look at two aspects of it. The first one, where we stand in the global supply chain, how localized manufacturing can fit in the global value chain of manufacturing. That's one side of it. The other side of it, how to have localized manufacturing, complete localized manufacturing, to serve the growing economy's demand and the growth of the demand and the growing appetite of the people to have EV. As you have mentioned before, that 71% are looking for EV cars in Saudi Arabia, and looking at the 2030 vision in which the population will increase. And so that all is an opportunity where the OEM has to look at, and local regulations in order to localize this manufacture and to protect it in the future in this volatile industry is something that has to always be improved. On the other side, looking at where are we standing on the value chain, I think the most important thing to look at in this region is the consumer behavior. And this is very important. The evolvement of this behavior and its effect on the manufacturers' thinking and the OEM thinking is very essential now, in which we can develop technologies and manufacturing that will actually fit in the global arena. The young population in this region, the growth in the population, the growth of the behavior, everything is evolving now. So I think it's very important and very unique opportunity in which the local government has to look at very, very carefully and fit in a way those localized manufacturing or localized thinking of development within the country is very important now. The last thing, which I think is also very important, what are the cross boundaries regulations that we can have all together, in which we can localize the manufacturing within the region, within the country. So we have to, in a way, unify the regulations between the adjacent countries, at least within the GCC, so that everyone will work together into having this region in the global playground, let me say, of OEM. So in short, it starts with the regulations, and additionally, which is very important as well, the soft skills as well has to be developed. So looking at the young population, looking at the vocational training, the vocational soft skills is very important into fostering any kind of localized manufacturing in order to have a holistic look at it, and would be more of effect into a more sustainable kind of industry. So that in short.
Yeah, thank you. And last question, maybe for Khaled. We hear a lot talking about carbon emission, ESG, carbon capture. How these things can foster and can accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles? So these force policies, the regulation that are coming.
Yeah, actually we believe that the business or the ecosystem of the mobility would require different KPIs. As mentioned, it's all about business KPIs today, about the adoption of the cars, building the infrastructure, reaching out the consumer and solve his problems. And from investor point of view, do I need to invest now? How much I need to invest, and what kind of technology I need to bring in place? For the OEMs, which product or which car that I need to make available in the market the next morning. But we do believe that there are higher KPIs that we need to focus on. If we go back a little bit to COP27, 28, and again the coming one, 29, the environment is taking a considerable amount of the discussions, and what impact that we do in our day-to-day lives. How our social life is actually impacted with our mobility needs and our mobility solutions around us. Shall we adopt the new ones? And if you look today at the new generations and I'll ask them, what's your next vehicle? They will tell you electrical immediately. And having the governance and the enabling the ecosystem of all the industries to collaborate and to build that ecosystem is also in relation to the governance. So we believe today that down the road, it's not only about how many cars we are selling, how many kilometers we are, again, able to charge, how many charge point operators do we need on the ground. We believe that ESG, or the environmental, social, and governance KPIs must be embedded within our, let's say, day-to-day business. And we should accelerate them because their positive impact into what we would do or what we would invent on the ground will definitely have a better meaning and a better future for ourselves and for our kids and planet.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any question for our panelists? Any additional curiosity you have? I think there is opportunity to ask it. Yeah, there is someone.
Thank you for the panel. I'm Rami and I'm working with Charge&Go. I have a question for Alaa. Since you're leading the market in delivering the fuel, how do you see the market value proposition if we'll be applying the same for the electricity? And do you have any plans in the near future to expand into this domain?
It's very nice to see you, and thank you for the question. I think that number one, our model actually makes a lot more sense on EV than it does on fuel. Fuel is one of the most common touch points that we could have with the owner and the operator of a vehicle. People fill up their car once, twice a week, 3, 4, 5 times a month. With EV charging, it's actually even more often. So for us, from an app perspective, it makes our app stickier. Stickiness in an app is how often a customer comes to your app and uses your app. EV actually makes our app even stickier, makes our relationship with the customer closer, and makes our touch point with our customers a lot closer. So in fact, EV is a very positive thing for companies such as ours that could have an even closer relationship with our customer. And on the electricity side, we do genuinely believe that we have to remain energy agnostic. We have developed fuel. We have even worked on biofuels. We have started charging on the EV side. And if in the future, hydrogen, synthetic fuels, or whatever other form of energy will need to be delivered to a vehicle, we will invest and deliver that form of energy to our customers. On when are we bringing this to the region, the truth is it's really based on us working and collaborating with the partners. So with the government, with the OEMs, with other partners, that we could work together on developing that for the market that we're in. We believe, surprisingly, EV adoption is actually better than what we had anticipated in the region to be. I think there's still a very, very long way to go, but EV adoption is actually happening here in the region, even though the pain points here are far less than what they are in other markets. Fuel is significantly cheaper here, right? If you had to fill up a full tank of gas in the UK or in the US or in the Netherlands today, you'd feel a significant pain point. It'll make you a lot more convinced to move to other forms of energy because the cost of energy. But we are surprised to see at how much there is a willingness for people to adopt EV vehicles. And I think these type of events and everybody here should garner a lot of credit for how they are supporting that transition to EV in the region. So we are willing and we will work very closely with stakeholders to deliver that solution here.
Thank you. I have one last question for Craig. How are you planning to switch the driver's mindset from owning a vehicle to leasing a vehicle? This is something very, very new and interesting for me.
Oh, well, look, I think it'd be fantastic if we could do it overnight, but we can't. I think it's going to take a long time. I think here, especially in this region, there's still a love for vehicles and a love for owning vehicles. You've already seen massive leasing adoption in the US and the UK and parts of Europe where people are moving away from ownership. But I mean, here it's still very much about owning a vehicle. So I think that's going to take quite a long time to get people into that mindset if you don't own the vehicle. But for that to happen, there has to be, again, collaboration seems to be the word of the day, between the OEMs and the financial institutions to bring out these kind of financial solutions that enable that to happen. And at the moment in this region, the financial solutions for cars are very limited, in terms of lease deals, PCPs, buybacks. It's pretty much car financing. So you still own the car, or the bank does, until you pay it off.
Okay. Any other question?
Thank you so much for the panels, all of them. I think it was a very informative for all the information that you shared today. Actually, it's more of a comment than a question. For the, let's say, electrical vehicles, we have to think of the same way that fuel vehicles started from the beginning, and see how it came to this point where we try to replace what we had before. Our mindset has already accustomed to this reference, oh, fuel is good, you go to the gas station, you fill up and go, it's a quick action, you maybe buy coffee or something and go. This mindset, if we translate it to electrical vehicle, it might work, where you have all these current gas stations as maybe a swap battery rather than just charging, for example, waiting for 40 minutes or whatever period of time you need to recharge your car, or charge and go. So adapting the design of the new cars to be more of efficient in charging, or replacing the whole battery system, putting a new battery, selling maybe just the body of the car and have this power, which is the real battery, as a lease option in all these gas stations to pay for it as a monthly service or annual service or whatever type of business model that can be created in this manner, where you take off the worrying of where do I refuel or where do I recharge, in any certain area. This could be a different business model approach to making this vehicle, electrical vehicle cars, more adaptable to the society rather than we're trying to create new things or come up with ideas to resolve a problem that we have. You can have a different approach to out-of-the-box solution to bring this industry with clean energy or clean solution in the transportation industry and look into the all levels of population where you have maybe the common employee who's making, for example, $2,000–3,000 per month, somebody's making $1,000 per month, more or less the average, let's say, income. And if he's gonna buy a car which is 10 or 15, which is the average now car sale, for example, it's a lot of money to pay up front. In Jordan, we have a very good, successful business model for electrical vehicles. A lot of the small investors or the financing companies coming in, and these are, by the way, they're regulated investors, and they come and buy the cars and sell them over, let's say, 3 or 5 years period of time. They don't put a high percentage for profit, but it makes sense for someone to pay $200–300 per month and own a car over 5 years, for example, period, rather than to pay one time a hefty fee of $20,000 or $30,000. So there is so many things that can come up with everybody joining together their minds and then putting the right design of the car that fits that certain region. For example, in the Gulf region, we have high heat, where you have to use the AC a lot, most of the year, for example. So in Europe, it's a different idea. You need heat to warm the car rather than cool it. So adoption of the design of the car from the beginning, we come and we have to buy electric vehicle, but okay, this vehicle is made in China or made in US or made somewhere. They don't really create it as a standard for, they just make it, for example, as a general standard. They don't have a Gulf regions, which they do have a specs for the old vehicles, which is the fuel vehicles, but with electrical vehicles, you need to go through the compliance of the country to adapt the car after you already manufactured the car, which, you know, put you away from the real solving of the issue of bringing the right car to the right region. For example, to Saudi Arabia or to Kuwait or to Jordan or to Europe somewhere. Okay, this is just ideas. I don't want to go too far.
New business idea. There it is. New business idea. That's for CAFU, definitely.
Thank you very, very much. Very, very valuable.
I don't want to say any question. I think I just want to comment. That's
This is very, very, very
Thank you.
helpful.
Thank you.
No, actually, I just want to comment on this. It's a very, very good observation. Now, with the advancement of the battery and separating the battery from the shell, it leaves a huge space and for business development and for business modeling, in which you can lease the battery. And one of the good observations here is that the advancement on the battery and the anxiety on the consumer level can be actually hedged in a way where you can have swappability function within the car. The batteries, I think that's, the sky is the limit in the battery development. And there are now talks about having your battery as your power bank and as a source of income to you in the future as well, in which you can preserve the energy and sell it to the grid, back to the grid, and you can generate income while you are asleep at night. So the sky is the limit in that sense, and having hardware that can actually adapt to this advancement is something that's really important in these days. So that's my observation on that comment.
Really. Last, yeah.
So my question is for Mr. Khaled Saif from Charge&Go. As an EV owner, when I can order my home EV charger from E&Go, it's a lot, same as I order an internet router. So when we can reach this level?
Well, very soon. I mean, it's not far away. You know, as a service provider, it's about business modeling. It's about creating the proper products and services today, as an investor, we are approaching the market in a different way. We are taking it into different steps. We are categorizing the business to be B2C, B2B, B2B to fleet, B2B to government, B2B to OEM as well. So the way how we are modeling our products and services is evolving in a way that will fulfill the market needs. And we are creating now, either from tariffs perspective, from investment perspective, from rules and regulations, even pricing policies and matrices perspective, the proper product for the proper customer or consumer need. So we will keep evolving, we will keep developing. And on another perspective, we are also working in implementing telecom concepts into power operator concepts. Again, as an example for that is the roaming. So for us, it's not always building the network or investing in the network, but we use our edge of knowledge and technology innovation hubs to create roaming, again, agreements among other networks as well, in country and outside the country.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Alaa.
Thanks.
So, as many of us actually know that most of the charging is happening at home overnight. Like 95% of home charging happening at home, of EV charging. So I can understand that Charge&Go is actually implementing a public charging point. So do you expect like a timeline to switch to private charging at home, like the timeline?
Well, and that in particular for the consumers, and from, again, our market research and landscape, we have seen different challenges. And when it comes to your home overnight charging, for example, or your home needs charging, when you go to separate villas or separate units when it comes to townhouses, that's an easy part to do and to implement and to execute. But the challenge remains in the common areas where, you know, high-rise buildings where common parking areas or parking areas, multi-story building, is not equipped actually with enough load, with enough power. And even the real estate developers are today suffering and requesting us to come up with solutions. So we are collaborating again with power utility providers to make that challenge addressed and build an ecosystem for them, like for example, common parking areas for that high-rise building, and people can reserve that charging slot or that charging time for their needs. The challenges are there. We are trying to set the solutions for either the consumer individually or with the real estate developer on a bigger landscape. Today there is a big demand, and many people are not adopting or buying electrical cars or going to the OEMs because they don't know where they will charge it. And even it's not only during their journeys, but also during their residential buildings.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Thank you. I think Navo, last one.
Thank you very much. This is Khaled. Thanks everyone for a very insightful discussion and information we got. My question to the Craig, since you have already said about you have invested a lot on the study and surveys from the customer point of view, right? And as per the survey results which you have shared with us, you said 8% of the people, 7 or 8% people, they are willing to buy EV vehicle, right? And out of that also, most of the people, they don't want to go to buy the used cars because of the problem maybe with the battery and technology advancement. So how you see that this challenge can be overcome, and what are the strategies you will put into place as an industry so that, because once you buy the vehicle, there is always, people are asking for the resale value and all these kind of things. So how you see this challenge can be resolved?
Yeah, I think it's a real challenge, I think, because if used cars don't hold their prices for EVs, and if there isn't demand for them, then it's going to be very hard for the manufacturers to hold their price for new cars, and therefore the whole ecosystem just doesn't work. So I think getting a good quality used EV market is essential in any market, not just here, any market. So I think if we look at the 3 reasons why consumers don't want used EVs, 2 of them are the same for new as they are for used. So, if you deal with the infrastructure and range anxiety, if you can find some flexible financing offers that maybe de-risk this car, then I think you can deal with 2 of the issues. The last one is around the battery, and I think that's a real challenge, because, no one knows, because it's still new, no one knows how long these batteries are going to last, and, you don't want to be the person that buys the car and then you have to pay $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 for a new battery. And so I think that's an industry challenge for when dealers have to test the battery. I think they have to provide certificates to consumers to show the life of the battery, the health of the battery. And I think that the manufacturers need to support the dealers in making sure that they can change those batteries if required at a reasonable price to ensure that the consumer buys a car. Because realistically, once you deal with the battery, the rest of the EV is actually quite difficult to maintain and keep in good condition. So that's the one sticking block, and I think that's the one thing that the OEMs and dealers need to focus on to deal with that. And I think it can be dealt with. I think you can deal with that issue.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may add as well, when it comes to batteries, more than just the manufacturing of it, but to your point, I think it's still in infancy stage. Most OEMs give warranty for 8 years, etc., which is to guarantee that I think that battery should last that long, if not longer. But nobody really have used it for that long yet. However, also as time progresses, there will be, now we're thinking about battery recycling, right? Eventually there will be battery refurbishments, repairs as an option as well, which will give the consumers more peace of mind when it comes to battery and hopefully overcome that barrier of the concerns of the battery life.
Thank you all. I think good job.
Thank you all.